Audicus is a online hearing care retailer that has been described as the Warby Parker of hearing aids. With us today is Audicus founder and CEO, Patrick Freuler. Patrick, welcome and thank you for taking the time to be with us today and talk to us about Audicus. Let's start by learning a little bit about you.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me here, and we're excited to share a bit of our story. So, my background is in engineering. I am, in fact, it's in aerospace engineering, and I spent many years thereafter kind of using that engineering mindset and approach to look at interesting companies and interesting areas within healthcare that I felt could be solved with a more tech-enabled approach to ultimately increase access and increase accessibility. I spent a good amount of time advising companies in the healthcare space and investing in companies in the healthcare space. And among others, I got a good amount of exposure within the hearing technology industry. And, I think that's also where, you start kind of like realizing how many people in your own environment, suffer from hearing loss and feel increasingly isolated, see their day-to-day impaired, see their relationships get impaired, and ultimately have more sinister downstream consequences of leaving that untreated. And I've seen this with countless people within my own environment, among others, my own grandmother. And, it is perhaps like a topic or a condition that, at least when we started Audicus, that was just really difficult to solve. It was very expensive to fix your hearing loss, right? And very cumbersome, very complicated, at least back then. And, we ultimately felt that, perhaps like we could come up with a solution that was perhaps a bit more accessible and perhaps a bit more affordable to folks with hearing loss that would allow them to, get back on their feet a bit quicker. And that's essentially how, the contours for Audicus came together. We started in a pretty kind of humble capacity. We started about 10 years ago with just a very big vision and lots of people with lots of passion, and ultimately started to build a solution that through lots of trial and errors ultimately became one of the most important online delivery models for hearing care out there. And today we are based in New York City, but have colleagues that are based across the country, as well as audiologists that we work with across the country. And we're very, very proud of all the impact that we've had today. We've helped tens of thousands of people, get reconnected with their loved ones. And besides, being able to have developed a solution that was effective, the impact was just very important to us. So, we're a company that ultimately got to where it is today simply by focusing a lot on the customer, the patient, him or herself, right? A lot of, what allowed us to win was centered around, really putting on some white gloves and like helping folks get accustomed and acclimatized to hearing technology, especially since a lot of people came to us for those products for the very first time. And, we couldn't have gotten where we are today without that, very much laser focused approach to customer support, So that's essentially how it all got started. That's what got us here today.
That's a wonderful story. And just for the audience, you all are one of the pioneers when it comes to the online delivery of hearing care. You were doing this well before the OTC discussions were even being had. And you've been successful in what you've been doing. And you've done that through a wide array of products and service delivery. And that's what I'd like to get into next is what are some of the products and things that you all are providing to consumers through this mechanism?
So that's a really good question. So the first product that we offer to people is our hearing test and hearing screening tools, which allows you to basically learn about your hearing capabilities in a very simple and like very fast manner, right? A lot of the first steps that you need to take in getting your hearing health back is firstly understanding better where you stand, right? And access to diagnostics, has traditionally been more difficult, So that's the first product that we offer, and all starts there, right? A conversation with our product specialists or the guidance towards one of our products is always informed by, how your hearing screening ultimately looks like. So that's the first product. Now, in terms of like actual hearing products, we offer a pretty important range of devices. We have products that are traditional RIC devices with modern features that you would be expecting from a device. So from direct Bluetooth streaming over to remote calibration capabilities and rechargeability. There's products that have become very, very sophisticated from a speech intelligibility standpoint, and I would say like our top of the range devices are basically encompassing all of that, right? We do have devices that also go inside of the ear, so we have completely in the canal products that are more discreet and perhaps like address customers and patients that are looking for these types of solutions as well. And there's a few models that sit in between and can kind of cover the range, right? I think at the end though, a lot of what ultimately decides a product selection is really a more holistic understanding of what you need, right? It's not just features and features from inside of the product. It's ultimately like also what type of life you live, right? And what your how your hearing loss ultimately is shaped, right? And what your budget constraints are, and ultimately how experienced you are with the products. And that kind of holistic understanding of someone is what our product specialist and audiology team does so well, right? We build a relationship with you, so we ultimately can tailor the right solution for you, right? It's in our experience, and we've been around for over 10 years now. In our experience, the advisory piece is so important, and it's very difficult to just dispense hearing aids without proper guidance. At least that's what we've learned along the way.
No. And that's well said. And just to clarify for the audience, you all, not only do you have an online hearing test, but I believe I read somewhere that you also accept third-party licensed hearing tests. Is that correct?
That's correct. We accept that as well.
Okay. So you an individual can come online, have their hearing tested, or have their hearing tested somewhere else and submit those results. And then I'm also looking at where your service offerings take place. Not only are they online, but I believe you all have partnered with Albertsons.
That's correct. We there's some physical presence that we also have put in place. You can also come to our headquarters in New York, and we have our clinic here. So if you need to see someone face to face, we can offer that. And I would say, like, part of our strategy going forward is ultimately to also build far more of a physical presence over the next couple of years, so that both the those customers who want to pursue an online option but require or like wish to have also physical touch points can do that as well. And so, like, a lot of that effort is currently being obviously built around the latest over-the-counter hearing aids regulations, which has enabled a lot of that physical footprint to just grow much faster, right? So we're definitely looking forward to building what we call an omni-channel strategy that just covers a lot of these bases.
I think that's the benefit of having been in this market for 10 years. You understand the journey, you understand the different generational purchasing behaviors. People come in over online, people can come into the store. So you have either a mixture or a segmented model that's omni-channel again. And then on top of that, you mentioned a couple of things, accessibility. So we kind of touched on that. You also have the affordability piece, because you have something called an Audicus Plus member. And then you've also partnered with some groups about payment plans. Am I correct about that?
That's correct. And I would say, like, our Audicus Plus programs are incredibly exciting, because it is pretty much the first of its kind that the industry has seen, and or at least in that form. And it basically is a model where you have a small activation fee for a hearing aid. And then thereafter, you can pretty much get on like a monthly plan with us, where you get access to our audiologists. You have, all the care and hygiene utensils to be able to maintain the product. And at the same time, and that's what gets a lot of people ultimately excited, is that every 18 months or so, you can basically send the old hearing aids back, and we equip you with the latest models, so you're always on the latest technology standard. And it's a model that's like incredibly flexible, because you can like start right with a very small kind of initial hurdle that's orders of magnitude smaller than what you'd otherwise have to pay at an audiologist. And if for whatever reason, like you don't like the products, or like you don't derive value from them, like in a couple of months' time, you can cancel any time and just send the products back. So what we really wanted to design here was a model that would completely pulverize the price hurdle to trying hearing care, right? And like really getting you accustomed with a product, getting you to understand how much it can really benefit you, and without like all the scary price hurdles in the process, and like without like the scary kind of contractual obligations that come with it, and it's been very, very effective, and we're very proud of like the number of people that were able to help with that. I think it's also perhaps also stressing the fact that this kind of more hearing as a service model, as we call it, right, really highlights and elevates the fact that at the end we are about that. We're about service. We're about really developing an ongoing relationship over many months, and that's ultimately what we do best.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really important point, and that is that hearing is about it's a service, right? You're providing relational types of intervention to help this person function better in their daily lives, reduce some of the social isolation that they exhibit, that they undertake, and it allows them to become a part of their community or part of their environment again. And you all not only provide those devices, as you said, you also have other services. So if I'm not mistaken, you can be counseled through your platform. There's repairs. You talked about the opportunity to have the latest technology within an 8-month cycle of supplies. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that's really, really important, that you're servicing not just a product, but the entire evolution of that person's journey.
Yeah, no, 100%. Look, I think at the end, like we're like from the moment someone like takes a hearing test, on our site or calls us for help, like we're building a relationship, right? And these are like people with stories, with lives and context, right? That needs to be understood to be able to tailor a solution, for them, right? And I think this this relationship that we built from the grounds up doesn't end when someone like receives a hearing aid in the mail, right? It's something that like is ongoing. Like you need to help them get up to speed, onboard them, make sure they know how to maintain the products, how to derive the best use from those products. And this is something that can take many weeks, at times can take many months, and I think it's really important that people know that like we're here for them, like for the duration, for the lifetime of the product. This is also the reason why we have so many people that purchase from us, come back for their next pair. I mean, we've had people that are now on their fifth pair with us, like folks that started with us like 10 years ago. Okay. And it's these are also folks that have over that time span like have developed different needs and like different living conditions, right? And therefore also need different types of products, right? We've also seen people that started with one product, okay, and tried that for some time and felt that like it wouldn't fully meet their day-to-day needs and like needed a different products. And so like we help them like in these types of situations to ultimately get to a solution that works, right? And I think that's something that our team does incredibly well, right? It's ultimately about finding a solution. It's not about dispensing like hardware. It's about solving your problem, right? And so I think the company, if you look at how it's staffed up, the vast majority of or the biggest how do you say distribution of colleagues that we have are in some form of product specialist or support function, because that's ultimately where how we built the company. And like we are very, very, very how do you say stringent on like really bringing on folks that have that empathy and like can build that connection and ultimately want to be solution focused with whoever they deal with, very, very, very important tool. I've chipped away at that and gotten that right over the course of this past decade.
Yeah. No, I think the one thing that might be on people's minds is OTCs are now part of our ecosystem. You've been doing this, this direct-to-consumer model now for about a decade. You certainly learned some things, and you've been successful at doing it, and you've continued to be successful, even though consumers now have direct access to the technology and the services, either by seeing a professional or doing it by themselves. So having that experience, what can you share with our colleagues who are servicing other hearing impaired individuals about the landscape, given your experiences?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's a really good question. I think so. Firstly, we think that the OTC development is a really, really good one for end consumers. It's great to have more access to hearing products, right? In more places, it's more ubiquitous, it's more affordable. More people that were on the fence about doing something about their hearing now can give this a shot, right? And kind of tiptoe into that. So I think there's this is obviously still a very recent development, and like what we're seeing out there is a lot of companies like trying really, really interesting things. Like you're seeing hearing aids in pharmacies, you're seeing hearing aids in consumer electronic stores, you're seeing hearing aids in online, right? And you'll probably see hearing aids being offered in many more kind of outlets over the next couple of years. And like we count ourselves as part of that development, right? So overall, like net, I think OTC is a very, very important and very good thing for the end user. Net, right? Now, what we've learned over the years, though, is that most people that need hearing care skew a bit older. Most people also buy their products by hearing it for the very first time through these newer models, right? And as a result, like there is perhaps like more education that is needed, right? Education around what where you stand with your condition and your life, but at the same time, what the products can do for you, and like really managing the expectations and managing what how to ultimately maintain the product going forward. And I think that aspect, like the kind of assistance and guidance aspect, is not going to go away. I think that aspect is going to still be very, very important, even if you have newer channels, like newer retail channels that offer now hearing care. So I think there will be people that are okay buying hearing aid off the shelf and never having to deal with someone ever again, and that's okay. If that works for them, that's okay, provided they stay healthy and like everything's in a good place. I do think though that perhaps the winning models are ultimately those that can kind of combine both, like easy access, affordability, but still have a strong kind of support and guidance backbone that you can fall back on.
No, I agree 100%. Having said that, and again, I agree with you 100%. What's in the future? Can you share anything that Audicus might be working on, or can you reveal anything that you see in the forefront here?
Yeah, so sure. I think for us there's like a couple of like important areas that we feel we ought to be investing in and building a stronger presence in. The first one really is perhaps like entering and expanding in this OTC landscape with a model that is, like I just mentioned, bringing those two important components together: access and affordability, and service. So over the next couple of quarters and years, like we will be building that type of presence with bigger retail partners, and ultimately also build that on the back of the experiences that we've had over the past 10 years, because we've made a lot of mistakes along the way as well. Learned a lot of things on like what to do and what to not do. And I think right now there's a lot of retailers that are looking to enter this category without that experience, right? And I think this is something that where we can add a lot of value, and so that's perhaps like the first big push into retail, assisted retail as we call it. And like when I say assisted retail, it's not just assisted at the physical level, but ultimately being able to combine this with online and virtual assistants as well, right? So really having that those two worlds come together. So I think that's like one big push that is going to be important and is very much aligned with our mission. I would say the second piece that's very much aligned with our mission is really driving our Audicus Plus subscription models forward, because I think we're now dealing with a consumer segment that is quite different than they were 10 years ago, right? 10 years, in the last 10 years, we've seen a lot in that demographic, right? And the average 55 plus year old is a lot more astute with technology. They're far more, accustomed to dealing with, health, in a more kind of remote and digital manner. And I think those 2-3 years of pandemic living have, definitely accelerated that as well, right? And so you're dealing with a customer segment that is perhaps also, more okay with or has perhaps different expectations and higher expectations on how hearing care should look like. And that's why, like, I think, our super easy, very kind of carefree type of subscription models can be a very, simple way, an affordable way for people to get going, which is also aligned with how they think. I would say the third piece that is very important for us as well is just working more closely with managed care organizations and benefit organizations, and I think that's also part of the healthcare ecosystem that has become more and more activated and more interested in hearing care, right? And, if you see like the number of insurance companies that, offer some form of hearing aid benefit now compared to 10 years ago, it's a very different landscape, which is very good for consumers, And so, I think it's done wonders to open up the markets and help more people get back on their feet. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for these types of bigger managed care organizations to ultimately embrace models like ours. So I would say these are the three areas, OTC retail expansion with an assisted model, subscription, and managed care.
No, I agree 100%. It's going to be interesting to see how hearing care changes, and it's going to be a different world and a different place. In 10 years, we can come back and look at this video and say, how did Patrick have a crystal ball, and was he able to predict what was happening in the future? And I think to a certain degree, a lot of what you're saying will come true in the future, because that is exactly where it's headed. There may be other things that are coming that we don't see yet. And, individuals like yourself who have been ahead of the curve will be able to take those things, manage them, and then get those out to the consumer in a way that benefits them at the end of the day, because people don't have hearing aids because they look good on you. They use them because of the functional benefit that they provide.
Exactly. It's about the benefits, right? And I think what's also important is that at some point we get to a stage where, like, just by having more dialogue and more exposure, right, and also just like more people being okay wearing hearing aids, or just wearing hearing aids to start off with, where as a result of that, the product becomes less stigmatized as well, right? And once you can get to that point, like, you get a bit of a flywheel effect where like you solve or address your hearing in a far less kind of psychologically taxing way, and just a way, like, at some point, I don't know, 100 years ago, it was psychologically taxing to wear glasses, and now it's right. It's not a problem, or less of a problem.
100%. And with that, I think you hit the nail on the head. 10 years from now, we'll be talking about the hearing care market in a very, very different light. I think we're going to see a downward push to where younger individuals will be wearing it because they're used to having that technology in their ears. And the way that the algorithms and the engineering is advancing at such a high rate, the ability of those devices to do the things that are hampering communication, I think, will be overcome in a better capacity. And folks will be just talking about hearing aids like they talk about eyeglasses, and they'll see the benefits. And it's a credit to you and others who have foreseen what these opportunities are. And so, Patrick, we wish you all the best of luck. we'd love to have you go on in a couple of years or a couple of months to see how you all have grown. And again, we'll pull out the old video that we're recording now and say, did Patrick have the crystal ball? And then we'll recreate the crystal ball and see if you can predict the future again.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Well, it's been my pleasure, and thanks for being on, and we hope to have you on again.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It was great to be on this.
Thanks.